So I have a question for Andres. Do you have work like your company is just your boss and that's it? I'm not gonna ask anything specifically about like who you work for, blah blah, but more so, do you have like dress code?
Not really. I
No.
mean, there's nothing. Actually, I think there probably is something written in the employee
There's got to be
manual.
something, right?
Yeah, I mean, it. I'm pretty certain I could show up to work in like a t-shirt and whatever, and it wouldn't really be a big deal. I probably couldn't.
As long as you're not like client facing, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's basically why I dress up sort
Mm.
of like
Yeah,
decently.
what's your attire like? What are you wearing?
What
Uh
are you wearing, Andres?
Yeah, tell me, what are you wearing?
What are you wearing,
Tell
dog?
me what you're wearing.
Hey, what are you wearing?
I usually just I mean, my wardrobe is pretty much the same outside of the shirt for
Yeah,
no matter what.
that's hot.
So it's like just my normal shoes and socks, and
Oof.
then
Socks too, nice.
I don't like this bit.
Just moan. Just not even trying to go with the bit. Just
Well, I mean, you sound so you're wearing a
They
button up, which go, let's go.
Okay, so the reason I asked is because mine
can
has
I
a dress
fucking
code.
answer the question before you move
I thought you
on?
were done. I thought you were done.
I said I was done with the bit. I'm just gonna fucking. I just wear black pants and a fucking button up. There you go.
Where's the- Oh fuck! I just hated Manny's. Oh! Manny's horse getting shot noise.
That is my signature move.
The only t-shirts I wear are just plain striped t-shirt.
It would be super cool to see you go in with like a Thrasher shirt. You know,
A
just
Thrasher
like
button.
rock that shit. A Thrasher, yeah, Thrasher button ups.
I remember Rooster Teeth used to sell polos that just had like the Rooster Teeth logo on the side, and I was just like, why? Why is this a thing?
Well, maybe you
Gotta
wanna
look fancy.
you wanna rep while you go golfing, or play polo.
That's a good point. I hadn't even considered the idea of golf.
Is
The reason I
are
was
polo
asking,
shorts? Okay, go.
Polo shorts? I thought polos were pants.
I was saying, are polo shirts? Do they actually originate from the sport of polo? Does that correlate?
I can only assume.
I was just
you know.
today. Oh my god, polo shirts. Let's go on Wikipedia. I had to buy a bunch, is what I was going to mention, because I had to go to work, and they were like, yeah, you need to just wear a polo, it's fine. And I was like, I don't own any polos. Like, I don't have any. And, like, wearing a button-up just kind of, like, I don't really have, like, ones that I think are appropriate. They were used by polo players originally in India in 1859 and in Great Britain during the 1920s.
Wow.
Damn. It is from polo. What a stupid people we are.
Yeah, wow.
Me and
it's
Manny
almost like it was in the name. Yes.
Me and Manny specifically not thinking it. So I had to go and like, I just had to fucking find something. I don't know. I went to like a bunch of different stores, and I was like, man, I'm fat. Like, just like my shirt was like nice, but it made my stomach look big, and I was like, I'm pregnant. I look pregnant in this shirt.
It's all about Ross, baby.
Yeah, hell yeah. But
we
like,
are a Ross sponsored podcast.
I remember I was talking to them, and I was just like, so how important is dress code? Like, do I need to wear shoes and this and that? And they're like, no, you can, whatever you want to do is fine. Like, dress shoes, odd dress, not regular shoes. And they're like, you can wear, I came in with like these, like, there's these like dress casual shoes I bought at Cole Haan, I think it is. But they look rubber. They look like I'm a fucking toy, and I hate them. So I just started like I wore my Nikes one day, and they were like, "Yeah, that's fine. No one cares." Like, who? Just as you're gonna meet a client, you need to kind of dress up. And I was like, "When am I gonna meet a client?" In like 4 months. Like, don't worry about it. And I was like, oh, "Okay, cool."
So you bought all your polos just to meet a client. I see.
Yep, basically. Shirts are kind of like shirts are a bit more. You just wear a collar. It's kind of all it is. And then pants for pants. I was like, this isn't too bad.
I just roll in skate shoes all the time, so
Damn.
You do some Heelys. Just walk in.
just glide.
Those are, yeah. Glide into your business meeting with them, Alexi. When you're trying to sell the product, when you're fixing it.
Would you like some
glide
tube fittings? Hold on, let me grind this tube fitting over here, and I just fucking Heely away. Or what was the ones that Sonic had?
That.
Yeah, those ones.
in.
Damn.
Yeah. I think those situations are better than like the entertainment industry because you have like very specific uniforms for like audio work, for example. Like
Really?
it's always like it's always like you dress black, you dress in like a polo, you dress in like black pants, and like you're meant to be efficient but not seen. So it's like at least you get to like choose colors. I don't know. That's like
really?
it's a different space. Yeah, you have to like oftentimes you're dressing in all black, which is why my clothes were all black for like a long time. Like
This is
that's
wild.
part of it. It's part of it. I also like the absence of all color and hope. So
It's
I'm
also a very much like high art thing to dress in all black, so there is some pretension to it.
My
definitely.
My dad bought a bunch of when he first started working at the company. Like my mom would buy him clothes, and one like after a while he was like, "I'm gonna buy my own clothes. I'm an adult man," and blah 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 blah. And so he bought like red pants, like red, and then he had a shirt that was the exact same color. And he was going to work. My mom woke up and was like, "What are you wearing?" He goes, "I'm matching." She's like, "That's not how matching works." Red shirt, red pants, and he looked like he was wearing like a jumpsuit. It was like, I was like, this is so weird. And my mom was like, "No, you can't do that." And like, he'd found like a teal shirt, and he found teal pants, and I was like, "Dude, this is so weird. Stop finding this. Like, where are you going?" And eventually, my mom was just like, "Just get khakis, black pants. Don't get colored pants anymore." And he was like, I love and respect you, but I'm not gonna listen to what you just said. I love blue pants." Like, he was just like so happy. I was like, "All right, good for you, man. Who cares anymore?"
Navy also works, but I guess that's tipping the line of just
we're afraid of giving him any leeway.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, what a terrible segue we're about to have.
Speaking of dressing in all one color.
Ooh! Wow.
You got it.
Good one.
We should pay you, my friend.
We need a soundboard. We need like a segue soundboard. Let me see. So this week we read Jonathan Hickman, and let me get the artist. I'm sorry, Jonathan Hickman with Nick Dragotta, East of West, which is a monthly comic that appeared for 6 years, March 2013 to December 2019, 45 issue run by Image Comics, and it says it is a science fiction western, which is pretty cool, set in dystopia version of the U.S. And one of the first things I want to ask you guys is, did you guys have? Manny should have it. There's a map on the book in the front and like in the cover. Did you know there's a map on Dress? I know you read it online like I did.
There's a map. Where is this map?
I don't think I saw it.
Check the inside cover.
And it might be only on like the year omnibuses because I know
I have it. Check the back
and
cover.
You have, I mean, I can show you what it looks like. So for our listeners, it is stripes.
Just those stripes. Try one more page in between. All right, what about the first one? Really?
The beginning?
Yeah, the very, very beginning.
Okay. Here we go to the beginning.
No,
I know.
nothing. Okay, well I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I thought it was a 7 nations. Maybe this
Oh,
isn't
that's cool.
correct.
Oh,
There it is.
cool.
So the Union is the north, all the way up to about Kansas, which is where armistice happens. Confederacy is till about Georgia. I'm really bad at geography. Texas is Texas. um, the PRA, which is the China occupied area, is all of the East Coast up until about New Mexico, I believe.
You mean
And
the West
then-
Coast?
Yeah, West Coast. Thank you. Endless
Mhm.
Nation, which is phenomenal fucking name every time, is the Midwest, upper North Midwest, whatever.
Mhm.
Up north. And then the burning plain is the middle, and then Armor Stance is in Kansas. I remember that's what I don't know if they specifically mentioned that in the comics, but I was reading other stuff and they say like it happens in Kansas. They just kind of say it
Oh, cool.
happens somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't think they ever mentioned that it's Kansas, at least in the first 2 volumes, but the first 10 issues of the comic. But
Yeah, here's one with all the characters above them. Oh damn, I'm like going through and I'm seeing a bunch of other art that I found, and I'm really glad that my favorite panel is in the 10 issues too. Anyway, okay. So I wanted to show you guys that because I thought that was one of my favorite parts about one of my favorite things that any media can do is to show me a map. That's how you get me. And a lot of like fantasy novels do it, you know? They're like, here's our map of the world. And it's just kind of like, this is England. Like, this is 100% England, but whatever. But yeah, this is a really, really cool run. I describe this as every single person on the planet is now speaks as if they're a philosopher, and a bunch of weird shit happens that doesn't need to be explained and is never really explained. Like, what exactly is the technology? Like, why? What is this, that, and the other? Of like, what is the limit technology? What's the expansion? They don't focus too much on those details. It really is just about these characters and what's going on with them. And I love it. It's really cool. It's one of my favorite things I've read in a long time. I own, thanks to a buddy named Marcos, he gave me an issue 1 of East of West. I meant to go grab it. I'll look for it when we take a break of it, and it's graded. I'll go find it right now and I'll show it to you guys for our weekly prop. And yeah, it's written by Jonathan Hickman. He has written tons of cool things. I'll talk about him later. And then I don't really know too much about Nick Dragotta, but I know they had collaborated previously, and that was the reason this came up. They kind of were like, we want to work together. Hickman said, I have a Western. Dragotta said, I want to draw science fiction. And then that's how it came to be. And it's very a unique story for sure. Like, I've never seen anything close to this kind of story, in the idea of like America splinters in time from the point of the Civil War. Maybe 1 or 2 I've heard about that. But then it's just like, it's not just America. There's China. There's this giant religion that kind of exists. And some things are kind of just accepted and normal. Like, Crow, Wolf, and Death are all just like white or black skinned, as in like the color of white and the color of like solid black, not like skin tones. And people are just like, yeah, what's up? Like, no one ever really mentions that to me, which is like so weird. When people meet the other 3 horsemen and they have blue skin, no one is like, this dude's fucking blue. Like, maybe I shouldn't mess with him. They're kind of just like taking him at face value. So I really do enjoy that part. I want Nick Dragotta's Twitter. Nick Dragotta's Twitter is at Nick Dragotta, and it just says East of West. There's nothing else in the detail. He has other artwork. It's really funny. Yeah, of course.
Well, yeah, Nick. So in the back of the like trade backs, says that Nick Dragotta's career began at Marvel Comics, working on titles as varied as X-Statix, The Age of Sentry, X-Men First Class, Captain America Forever Allies, and Vengeance. But that this East of West is Nick's first creator-owned project at Image. So
cool, love it. But yeah, this is one of my favorite series. It's super fun, super. I think it pays off really well. I think a lot of it really builds up well, and makes you really care about these characters. It's only 45 issues, so that's 9 trades. I'm gonna definitely be rereading it again because when I first read it, I read up to 40, and it's only 45, and so like I had to wait each month, and sometimes you forget the beginning of the story. I totally forgot about some of these characters, and not in like a way like they would show up later on, but I was like, oh, this guy, like I had no idea. Like the Ranger, he's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
He's really cool, but he doesn't show up for like I think he takes like a break and like is doing things. Because a lot of time passes during these. Like we were saying earlier, the omnibuses are 3 omnibuses sectioned off by year of like in story time. So that's pretty wild, Like this isn't just like some stories are just like in one night the world changed. This is like no, like time had to happen. They travel when they go through the spire. They're like, we've been walking for 2 days. Like, what are we gonna do here? Like, that's and it's like a throwaway line because you just kind of read it and then they can do their stuff. But that's
yeah,
it's wild to think about. So as usual, I just want to ask you guys what you guys thought about it. If you guys, what you liked, what you didn't like, whatever you guys want. I definitely there's times if I have to say one dislike, I will say sometimes with Nick Drago's art, the eyes make me laugh a little bit. Like his faces are so animated in a way that it's like really fun, and the eyes can be such like gigantic. I guess not even a dislike. It's something I really do enjoy about it because they're so huge and expressive. Like when they're freaking out, like when Death is screaming at the president of the union, he's just kind of like fucking wild and crazy. It's so good. I don't have any dislikes, honestly. I dislike that it came out monthly and it took me forever to reread it again. Andres, you can go first.
I really enjoyed it. There's definitely just something in me that really loves westerns, and I'm not sure if it was just my mom also really loves westerns. So I mean that's like kind of the spaghetti western eras what she grew up with. So yeah, there's just part of me that really likes that vibe. So it was a lot of fun to read. It was very interesting just in general, like the concept, and very much so reminded me of some of my favorite manga, so it wasn't like too unfamiliar from what I'm used to, at least. My first note is just something I will bring up right now is verbatim. I put, on God, I feel like such an idiot reading American comics the wrong way. So it's been quite a bit since I've actually read an American comic. But
really, I usually try to do 1 and 1. I try to do a manga and then a comic, to keep it just like fresh. But like now that Manga Dex is back, I'm like all into like just catching up on series I haven't read.
Yeah, I'm just kind of fully in manga, and maybe if there's a comic that catches my eye, I'll read it, or an American comic. But it's just I only really interact with manga, so the internet algorithms only give me manga to look at. So
yes. Manny, how'd you feel about it?
Yeah, I have very similar feelings to Andres. This is
your
like
mom
the
also
first
grew up
comic
watching spaghetti westerns.
Basically, I mean, very very similar. Not my mom though, but so, yeah, I know. Yeah, gotcha, bitch, huh? No, no. So, I haven't read like an American comic in forever, and we were just talking about how like after the last episode we did that I wanted to like read more comics and get back into them, and that this episode definitely satisfied that, and not only because it's a comic,
you were the only reason I recommended this. I totally forgot. I it's the thing. I know I love this series. I had forgotten about it, and so you were mentioning it. I was like, yeah, I will be perfect. Thanks. It's like, yeah, you're the reason I recommend this episode.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for doing it because it's good. I love not only like I love all comics. I was never a big American comic reader, but when I did read them, the stories I would read would often be one shots. They'd be like one
Mhm.
shot graphic novels. They would be these types of sort of more indie vibes, less stereotypical superhero storylines. And I think that East of West actually fits that storytelling mold really, really well. Not only in terms of content, but also in like the way that it uh it tells its story. Like you were saying, I actually started to pick up a little bit on the fact that they don't really care about building the world's tech oriented side. It really is sort of this lore that gets built up, at least in the first two trades. It's
Mhm.
really about the characters and the apocalypse that's happening.
Mhm.
And so it felt like super, super, super character driven for me, which I really like because that's like those are the types of like American comic graphic novel style things that I really enjoy. So yeah, my first that's sort of like some back history. And my grandfather actually loves westerns, like John Wayne westerns with like a passion.
Really?
Um yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
This is so
So
cool.
like
You
I
guys
grew
have connections to this.
I know it's weird because I before I would go to like elementary school, I would go to my grandparents' house, and I would show up really early because my mom had to work, and I would get there at like 4:30 in the morning and like sleep for a couple of hours. And the way that I would sleep is by my grandpa throwing on a western on like old on those old timey TV stations. I forget what they are. It's like it's not AMC. It might be AMC.
TV
Turner
Land?
Clan, Turner Classic
Yeah,
Movies.
both of those, both of those. Um,
Good job on it.
and so yeah, so I would just show up, and then like you would see like black and white westerns playing, and like I would just like go to sleep to those, on my good days I would actually stay up and watch them. So I have like a weird like nostalgia for westerns.
Mhm.
Um and this definitely scratched that itch. And I also think that the thing that did it for me was I think it was less about the setting and way more about the characters and the story that's being told, cuz it to me it's like traditional vengeance story, like a revenge story that's at least the way I'm reading this now. It's like an apocalypse, but really death is going on this mission to save his son. At
Mhm.
least that's where we're at now, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh and also it has like these westerny flashbacks where you get to see what happened in the past with like Xiao Lian, I think is her
Mhm.
name. And you see like these, I don't know, for some reason it just reminded me so deeply of like Kill Bill. Have either of you seen Kill Bill at all?
Yes.
I've seen parts, and I know I'd like it. I just keep one of the things I'm so bad at watching stuff. But yeah, I've seen parts.
Yeah, so it's Kill Bill is actually sort of unique in that it's a western that has a lot of Japanese influence because of the relationship in cinema to those two film genres. But I think the thing that did it for me in referencing Kill Bill was the fact that like the entire story is based around the lead character in Kill Bill
Mhm.
essentially being like brought to the brink of death by like a group of people,
Mhm.
and then both volumes are her getting revenge. So
Yeah.
it has this like it has like this revenge arc setup that I started to pick up on a little bit, and I think it's only because of Death's like aggressiveness. I think it's because he has this like persona to him that is really like no fucks given, like
It's the
everything is
best.
mine.
It's
Yeah,
so
he's like
fucking good.
he's so badass,
Yeah.
so aggressive. and so when I was reading it, like those are the things I really picked up on. But overall I really enjoyed the story so far. Yeah, it's been great.
It definitely to me gets better. There's a lot of like secret relationships we don't know about yet that are like, oh, like these people know each other. These people like they have this history. Like there's a lot of that as like it comes up, and it never feels shoehorned if you think about it. Like sometimes they're just like, oh my god, we've been related this whole time. It's like, oh no, like these people just have a history, but they've never come across, and then it's like, oh, like that's why he's like this and this and this, and that's why he's like this and this. Like, oh, it explains a lot. It feels very earned. It feels very well. It's just very well written. And Jonathan Hickman has so many stories like this. I'm gonna now also because of the Hoopla app, which I read it on, which is a library based like uh, media app where I can get comics, I can get novels, like audiobooks, stuff like that. There is one called Hickman's Avengers run is really cool. It has really good art, and it kind of expands this like really long storyline where they go to like space and like have to fight certain people and this and the other. It's like very very well written and like very grand. He's very good at writing like these big stories. Like sometimes like some writers can only really keep it like to a small thing, but like to be able to be like while this is happening, this is happening. While death is confronting the Oracle, these people are meeting and talking about money that could be made for each other. Like it's very and like those things do build up and like worked. It's not like they're separate things going on. Everything matters and it feels really cool. So he's like just a phenomenal writer. Other things he's written, just so I can get that off my head. Oh no, Control Shifty. He's written a thing called the Manhattan Project, which is really good. I need to remember what it's about, but I read part of it. Another alternate history story at the end of World War II, in which the Manhattan Project was a front for more esoteric science fiction ideas. I read a little bit of it. I think I got through the first trade. It's pretty good.
It's quite good actually. Yeah.
Is it?
I've read the first trade as well, and part of the second trade. It's definitely way sci-fi heavy. So if you're into sci-fi, it's a great read for sure. And it also has exactly the trademark storytelling that you're saying he has. It's very much that way.
He wrote this very good series for the Fantastic Four, which I also intend to read, called FF, which is just like I remember a little bit of spoiler, but at the end of it, he's like, FF does it mean anything else besides Fantastic Four? He goes, oh, it's always meant family first. And like the whole point is it's a book about family. It's that's all Fantastic Four is, and it's like very well done, and they just do good stuff with it. There is one recently. Let me see, I'm trying to find it. Oh, he wrote Ultimates. I didn't know that.
Oh,
he wrote a new X-Men run. There's like a retelling of things, and this one had like 3 starting issues. I think it was like House of X, X of Swords is the other one called, and then like Legion of X. I think that's probably wrong. But like 3 stories about 3 teams, and they're all intermingled again. So like he's very good at doing this, and I fully respect it as like a pseudo writer myself.
I was gonna say that's a really interesting way to describe yourself.
D&D modules are not writing, in my opinion, and I've done short stories and I've done things, but I'm not a writer. Like it's so hard for me to write. I just like stories. But I wanted to talk about just the first trade. If anyone had any comments on it, I have a lot of pages I want to reference. I did a lot of more notes on the first one than the second one. The second volume, I was just really enjoying my read through it.
I think it would be really cool to just talk about the opening a little bit.
Cool. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Go ahead. Do you want to start off, or should I kick it off?
I want to just say I love how it feels again so dramatic, and like every line feels like a line that could be so grandiose on its own, but he writes again like just a philosopher trying to shit all over the page, and in the best way possible. Like it opens with "the dream is over." Like what the fuck does that mean? It can mean a million different things, and that can be in the middle of a story and the end of a story, and it'll still be like something you think about. It opens with this like beautiful, like full panel of these like rock towers, and there's this basin with like symbols on the bottom. Just beautiful art all the way down.
I think the thing that really struck me about the beginning here is it doesn't really try to hold your hand in terms of the storytelling at all. It just drops you in and you go. And I think that was the feeling not only for the introduction of the 3 horsemen of the apocalypse at the beginning, but also right after that, when you actually start the first quote unquote start the first issue, it just drops you into the lore immediately, and like you sort of need a little bit of understanding about like American history, right? Like you need to sort of know about the Civil War. And there's also all of these references to a variety of sort of historical figures. Like you get a drop of Mao in there, right? And Mao is important as a sort of Chinese name and a Chinese family. And I just loved it. It just really went for it, and I was not expecting it to. I was really expecting it to be like, okay, so here's where we're at. Like here are the three horsemen. Here's exactly what this sort of how this message is unfolding. But it's much more vague than that. And I really love that part of it. Also, the art is gorgeous. So gorgeous. The colors in these two trades are phenomenal. Shout out to the color artist.
When did this come out again?
2013, I believe. March 2013, and it ended in December 2019.
Because it definitely reminded me a lot of because when I was really young, I would read comics, and then there's a pretty large break, and then I got back into comics as like a teenager. I don't know exactly when. It was when the first original Civil War was going on with Marvel.
Yeah.
So this art style really reminded me of all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
I'm
Alexi is looking up Civil War, and it is a picture of the movie cover. There's a movie poster.
I wanted to find when it released. Well, this is not helpful.
Well, I mean,
whatever.
You sort of get a impression of how the coloring and art style feels from what you showed us.
I agree with you, Andres. I totally agree with you. It feels that there's definitely like phases of art, I guess is a good way of saying it, like for like the general tone of what Marvel wants to look like, and it always
Yeah,
things change.
And when I saw about the authors thing at the end, it definitely made sense when I saw that Nick Dragotta had was involved in Marvel Comics, even though I kind of doubt that he was the driving force behind the art style at Marvel or whatever, but it made a lot of sense that he was a part of that camp.
It says Hickman and Dragotta had met when they collaborated on Fantastic Four for Marvel, and they just they liked working together. One of those a thing of just like we get it. You can the words I'm saying you can draw, and that's important. Like that is kind of to find a person who vibes with what you want to do.
The colorist is Frank Martin. Shout out to Frank Martin. I was trying to find your name earlier and I couldn't find it.
I remember we said this last time. I was like, Nick Dragotta drew it, and I love the colors, and we're like, it was colored by someone else actually. I'm like, damn it, sorry, Nick Dragotta. But yeah, they do they open it in such a weird way. Like people are birthed from stone, out of lightning. They're kids. They're 10 maybe.
Yeah, I think they say that they're 6 at one point.
One of them says he's getting murdered by a 6-year-old.
Yeah,
I remember that. Yeah. But it doesn't.
I hope
feel like they're 6.
No, it feels like they're preteen, maybe teen.
It's Famine. That's the skeleton-looking one, right? Or is that
yes.
War?
That's Famine.
I think it's Famine, War, Conquest. Conquest blue, War is red. Famine's green.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to tell how old Famine would be.
Yeah, they're not teenagers for sure.
No, yeah, they're supposed to be young. They're supposed to be childlike. Even Conquest, who's got that belly. I
just love. I really do love this series for just how fucking like we're saying like here's what's going on, and at one point when they're just like they emerge and they're like where is he where's Death, and we don't know it's Death at this time, and then they say we roll and we find out the truth, and they roll like bones, teeth, coins, bullets and stuff, and they say like the eye, the feather, the bullet, the bone. No mistaking that, and it's just like that means something. Like what does it mean? And like of course they're gonna explain it, but it is again like there's no hand holding, and I really do love a story that isn't like I read one series called Kaiji, Ultimate Gambler or Survivor, and it's good, it's a cool series, but there's points where they're just like explaining every little detail, and it just drags, and like you don't want to read more. But this one is so much like. Yeah, they explain to you what happened with the history and stuff, but it's like they don't tell you what the Civil War is. They assume you know what the Civil War is, right? They don't tell you why they fought, and they don't tell you this, that, and the other. There's now chiefs here. You're gonna take that there's chiefs here. I don't know. I don't know how much to say if you guys want to check it over because I'm getting all fumbled up in my words.
I think just in general, like the way a lot of narratives tend to work is either they start at the very beginning and kind of like take you on a journey from zero, or a lot of the time they'll just kind of drop you in the center and let you figure things out as it goes along.
What's the term for that? In media res? Is that true?
That I do not know.
Yeah, I don't know the term.
No, I think in media res is like in the middle of something.
Damn.
Yeah,
you gotta turn
in or into the middle of a sequence of events.
Damn.
As a literary narrative. Yep. So we are technically like I guess you could say this is the beginning because this is like when they're being born and there is a history, but like we didn't see them die and we know they lived. So like I would say this is kind of a good in media res, but a perfect starter. But I don't know, whatever the fuck.
Yeah. I would agree.
But yeah, go ahead.
I would agree. I think that's a fair assessment. And because if you think about the way that the flashbacks work, those are like pretty critical to the story. And so like, I mean, I guess it really depends on how you classify the story. You know, does the story begin when Death meets like Xiao Lian, for example, or is it does the story begin when they're reborn? You know, so you just think about it like that, I guess.
I guess this, like we're saying in the omnibuses, to take a peek behind the curtain. They're saying stuff like Apocalypse Year 1. So I guess it's like the beginning of the apocalypse is when we start our story. The Horsemen being born again. They have existed, but them being born again is now like how they are.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, it was like roughly a decade between those events and the beginning of this story.
He was gone for like 10 years. They mentioned that when he's talking to like to Xiao Lian. I don't know.
I don't know how to say her name either. Let's get Google Translate on that shit.
Let's get our resident expert at foreign languages on just to tell us how to say it. But him, he says he's gone for 10 years, and I know I've read it, and I'm pretty sure they talk about where he goes, or they might not at all. I can't even remember, but like, it's been so long since I've read this story in like a sitting. So I think I might recommend this again in like a little bit and being like, we're gonna hold off on reading this as like a group, and then maybe we come back and read like 2 more trades just to keep like and like read this whole series together. But maybe I just am like gonna read this all at one time. I don't know, but I think that might be fun.
Yeah, we might be able to do that, but then I think if that happens, then I want to give Andres the leeway to do K-On! Because
yeah, I'm definitely trying to make it so we have permission to do stuff like this.
Because I know you.
It's definitely possible. We can work something out.
We'll see. Okay. Andres, do you have anything to say like about any part of the first trade, the beginning to start with?
I didn't really come up with any like super specific notes just because as the person editing, I find that's not the best for just the listening public. But um,
I have one thing already on this page. On the, I don't know what page number this is. I'm sorry. It is the second basic exposition of all the lore. The part where it says the Accords were signed at Armistice, the epicenter of the event, on November 9th, 1908. It was significant, historic, and the third most important thing to happen that day. Like, that's just such a badass fucking line of saying, like, yeah, this was the end of wars, and that's still not the coolest thing that happened today. Like, it's just so rad. I just love everything about this.
Yeah. He definitely Jonathan Hickman has a way with words for sure. His like language diction choice is great.
That's one thing I noted, is that there's a lot of quotables in this comic. That, and I really love Crow's design. She just looks cool as hell.
Yeah, she's so badass.
What does he say here when Death enters the bar? Like, hey, you can't drink here. Like, you're not allowed to drink with like basically anyone from the nation, is what they call him. And he's just like, oh, don't worry, Wolf doesn't drink. And the Crow, she would never drink here. Like, I think it's like such a cool line of like, she doesn't fucking like you either. Like, fuck off. Like, give me my alcohol.
Yeah, I wonder if that if you know, like, clever wordplay is built into like westerns, because I think it is. I think like as a cinematic art form and like a story, like westerns are noted for having like this sort of like badass, like direct, almost arrogant tone to some of their lead male characters. And also if you think about Kill Bill as like as like a hybrid western sort of thing, the main character of Kill Bill is also pretty like badass and sort of like no fucks taken. So I think that's like I wonder if that's a characteristic thing for westerns.
Looking at the archetypes of main western characters, just off the top of my head, you have like Clint Eastwood, John Wayne, like they're all painted as badasses in their movies respectively.
Mm-hmm.
America as like a country loves the idea of like a one man like taking charge and like leading, you know? Like, it's kind of like, we definitely are one of those cultures who are like, we love this person who, we love Captain America because he can solve everything by himself and he's gonna take care of us and like, solve it, you know, to get a less shittier person than Clint Eastwood and John Wayne to come into it.
Yeah.
And then to counter with all like with the manga we read, and where it's a very collectivistic culture of like, we work together and we're friends, and like yeah, Death has his two people and he needs them. Like, it's very obvious he needs how fucking strong Crow and Wolf are. But he is the guy. Like, he's Death, and he's gonna say a lot of cool fucking shit, and we're gonna like it.
Yeah, exactly.
The flashbacks are so good. They're like, seeing like how Death was like pure black before is such a good, interesting concept. Like, you don't really know why he is the way he is, and that's when his wife is like, "You look different." He's like, "Yeah, I've seen some shit for the past 10 years also." Like, it's really cool.
Yeah. I just put two and two together there. I thought she was making a comment about how rugged he was, but it makes sense because he was like pure black before. I'm slow.
Yeah,
I'm a little slow.
Picked up on that.
Oh, okay, really? It's one of the first. I remember when I was like, I'm like, why is this? Whoa! And like, it's just so counter. Like, he looks like a man with his blue eyes as his now, and in the past he is just kind of like white voids are his eyes. He doesn't have human's eyes, and eyes are kind of important in the story as they go along, especially in like the next few pages when this guy's fucking eyeball opens up and it can talk. Like, what the, like, it just, again, like, more and more shit's happening.
Yeah.
Well, I guess just like in general, the whole Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse thing was kind of giving me some vague Full Metal Alchemist vibes. Like, just the whole concept of this, and the questionably, like, they don't really, it feels like kind of manufactured end of the world. Like, these people are trying to push for the end of the world rather than just letting it happen which also gave me some heavy Evangelion vibes. Just
Yeah.
the way that Sele kind of works in that show / manga, I guess, if you want to read it.
Yeah, I would agree. It has those elements of almost like this like it, to me when I was reading it, it has this very impending doom feeling, and I know that that's partially because of the apocalypse, but it also doesn't feel like it's a final thing. So it really does feel like there's a struggle happening, not just in terms of the narrative that's being told, but like there's this like back and forth motion um that I really enjoyed. Like I can never really tell if the Chosen are gonna get further along in their project or not. And then it sort of goes back and
Mhm.
forth because death is omnipresent, apparently. Travels a lot.
And then how very like different the Chosen are, and how much like they worship and follow the message versus like the clear people who are like, I'm here to keep living one more day, and like
Hmm.
the new when Madam President joins and she's just like, the message is this, and this, and then the Horseman's like, shut the fuck up, dude. Like we're doing like we know what we're doing. You're new here. Like relax. Like those, because it's like they're supposed to all be working for the same thing, but they clearly already don't. Like they don't like each other. Clearly, none of them like each other.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about more parts in specific later. To go back to the beginning, there's this. This is the part I always would think about when I would mention like how different these people speak to our like day and age. Where the tracker, he goes, "Doesn't your kind have plenty of experience with men selling their souls just to breathe one more breath?" And it's just like, yo, like this guy's supposed to be like some hick dude running a bar, and he's talking like he's just this verbose man. And like maybe that it was, but like if I was watching some Frontier era show with my mom, and all of them spoke with like this very like weird structure to it, that it's very cool and interesting, but like they were just like, we work on a farm, but like don't you wreck blah blah blah. Like it was interesting to me that maybe this is kind of how people talk, and we need to go back to it because it sounds way cool.
Yeah, it's like a trend of speaking in hyperbole, I think. That's like a
Hmm.
pretty popular thing. And I do think that that has a place in like old Western cinema too. Um,
Definitely.
yeah.
I mean that didn't really catch my eye, and I think it's just because like it seems like something you could hear in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, even though they're all supposed to be relatively uneducated people.
Hmm.
Another thing I want to talk about, because this is something I always pay attention to. Death's horse. Like I never really called it a horse. You don't really think of it as a horse. He just has this creature. It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's so weird. There's a panel later on where like all of four of the horsemen have horses. I don't think they do later on, or maybe there's definitely a part where they do, but it is kind of like his constant companion, and it's like a very just like, it works, it exists, it's alive, it's not, it can do these things, it can shoot like Cyclops optic blasts that like decimate everything, and it's super cool. But yeah, it's super weird. Go ahead.
I don't know where, but I swear I've seen something with like a very similar concept of just something you can ride and has like a optic cannon on the front. And I really can't remember where.
It's probably a manga or a anime of some sort because that happens. There are a couple of those types of things in a lot of sci-fi manga. I mean, like as a like as a tech, like a sci-fi futuristic tech thing, it's a pretty trademark like design, I think. And I have a very strong feeling it's coming from like a manga that I've read, cuz I thought the same thing. I was like, wow, this feels like one of those like OP uh OP machines that like a anime
Yeah.
protagonist would have or something, you know.
It's weird. It's cool. There's definitely like a scene later where like it's failing and like the reactor's like dripping, if you know what I'm talking about, like the red parts like dripping on the floor. I've always loved that. That panel stuck with me a long time because I think it's just super.
Is it in volume 1 and 2?
Yeah, yeah. I'll get to it.
I forgot it. That sounds cool.
I Hoopla was really cool because when I did this thing where I tapped it and it would zoom in on each panel, and I definitely suffer from like I just want to read and look at the big pictures. I will like skip a manga is an art form that you look at each panel so you can understand pacing and stuff, and I'm so bad at reading that sometimes. So like I was glad that I tapped it and it like forced me to like zoom in on each one. Let me see.
I remember where that panel is. For folks following along, it's during the People's Republic of
where he's fighting the PRA.
Yeah, the PRA.
Yeah. Here is the first one. This is the first thing that I remember. It stuck with me really well. Death is visiting the president. President says, we killed you, and then it shows his face when he was like all black, and now it's like white, and it's like a perfect contrast to who he is.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a beautiful way of looking at it, actually.
Yeah, I on the reread it, I definitely got a lot more out of it. But this whole page where he's like about to kill him, and he it's really weird. I really love this idea of like he's forcing people to say his name for some reason, and like how powerful his name is. And just this line of like, if you find hell lonely, wait, because company is coming soon, and then he just fucking shoots the hell out of him. I was hooked instantly when I read this. I would recommend this thanks to one of my comic buddies. He used to work at a comic shop, and it was Aaron, phenomenal human being. And I would just ask him like, what do I read now? Like, I don't want to read comics. I want to read something. I don't read Marvel comics right now. I want to read something interesting. And he would just go and be like, you're gonna like this one. He gave recommended East of West. He recommended The Boys. He got me into D&D. So like he's a very like important person to me. But I remember this was like the first one that I was like, this is amazing. But yeah, apparently this sold out for issue 1. Sold out in the first day, I think. In the week of its release, which is kind of like a big deal.
Yeah, I remember it being really, really popular. Like when I remember seeing maybe like issues 10 through something being put out on shelves. Or on racks, I should say, whatever, who gives a fuck. And I remember people saying like, "Oh, you should get that. You should get that. You should buy that." It was like when it came out, it was really, really popular. And if I remember correctly, Manhattan Project came before, and I remember it being really popular as well. But I don't know if that's true.
I think you're gonna be right. 2012, 2014.
It was a really short.
Is when Manhattan Project went.
That seems really short. Is it like 20 something?
It was. The series is ongoing and began. A monthly ongoing series began in March 2012 to critical acclaim, and the series was relaunched as Manhattan Project: The Sun Beyond the Stars on March 11, 2015. I wonder why. And it's 25 issues. So like maybe he was writing both at the same time.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Seems like it.
That's wild.
That's a lot of work.
I can't even that's a lot of work to do this. And then I wanted to go back to the president being shot in the face of the comic book. This is not a threat, I swear to God. So he shoots him, and then it's the narrator saying, "You wanted the end times? Well, here they are." And it's kind of, to me, it feels like Death saying it to them. These people who are like trying to bring about the apocalypse, and he's like, "I'm here. I'm gonna fucking be your apocalypse." And it can be both. It can be a narrator telling us. It could be him thinking it to himself. And I just love how that works so well.
Joe Biden.
And that's the end of the first issue. That's the end of the first issue. I think that's I didn't really consider this for long things. It's kind of something I've gotten more interested in as I've been reading more Shonen Jump. Things get like weekly releases, and if they don't really hook you, it's never gonna. They need to get their hooks into you to make sure they keep producing. this is a really solid, cool like first issue. It asks you a lot of questions that you do definitely want to hear the answer to. But then it kind of people are like, yeah, this has tons of potential, and then issue 2 comes and it's really cool also, where they're like going through this whole. They do like 9 people before they get to the new president, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
It really teaches you
4,
about the
5.
executive branch of the government and how
Yeah.
just reminds me of back in a couple of years ago how people were trying to calculate how to get Bernie as president and like having to have like 20 people die before that actually happened.
That's another thing I really like about this series in general so far is there's like a pretty big political undertone that sort of runs through a lot of what happens. And I think it's mainly because it is involving these like disparate nations who each have a chosen in them. And so I think that's like they sort of serve like a political purpose. I don't know, because it seems like the political stuff is really secondary, but it sort of comes to the forefront in the second trade.
When they tell the president, like, hey, your people are being shitty, and like, we need calm cattle, like, calm these people. Like, it is the reason they're the chosen is because they're leading their nations or have some kind of sway in them. And like, Bell Solomon's the governor, Archibald is the president of the union, Madam President. John Freeman is a prince. He's the crown prince, at least, that has a lot of sway. She, the daughter of the PRA. That's fine. I think. Who am I missing?
There's Chavoyo.
Chavoyo he's just a part of the thing, but he has like a lot of sway and power to it.
He's like an elder of the nation. Yeah.
The Endless Nation. I didn't notice this. When she's sworn in, she's not swearing in on the Bible, she's swearing in on the message.
Whoa.
I didn't notice that. That's really cool.
Do you learn more about...
Well, it hasn't happened, but isn't it supposed to be if whoever's sworn in as president, they can choose what to be sworn in on?
Yeah, that's true.
Attention to detail. That's cool.
Like in real, if someone was like, I'm Jewish, right? They can swear on like the Torah, right? Yeah.
Oh.
That's.
We are a Jewish podcast now.
We're a Jewish anti-animal podcast. Let me see. Let me get some more pages I want to talk about. But anything else from you guys so far about like the first issue, or you want to just go through all my little pages that I recommended to myself?
I was just gonna say I thought choosing, or I guess this is more towards like the second volume, but choosing the Civil War as like the massive turning point for the United States seemed very interesting. In my notes I said it was fairly idealized conditions though, because in the Civil War era there's no way in hell they would have given Black Americans their own part of the country. But
yeah,
I think I was thinking about that too as I read it, and the way I interpreted it is that the comet crashing or whatever, like, right, this asteroid hitting Earth, causing this thing, was meant to be taken as such like a spiritual event, almost sort of like this like spiritually shaking event, because there's a lot of reference to like, it was like God stopped the earth just to pass down judgment, was like that quote or something. And so I think that the idea behind that is that it was like so reality shattering that they were like, okay, well, yeah, here you go, you get New Orleans. But I don't know. I do agree. I think it's very idealized. Do you have that quote there?
Right here is there are those that say the comet should have struck some other land, that God, like with Joshua and the Amorites, somehow held the world up, kept it from spinning, just so he could deliver judgment. So saying like, oh, it landed here for a reason, even though it could, universal randomness also exists.
That's very true.
But yeah,
Yeah, I do agree. Undress,
Also,
I think, is idealized. Yeah.
was there something that I missed? Because apparently I missed a fair amount in my read, where they explain how Mao made it to the U.S. in general.
Yes. I don't know if they explain it here, but I'll give you a little
Well,
sneak peek if you'd
they
like.
explain it in
Um,
at the end
they
of. They explain it when Mao's just before Mao dies.
there's I was reading here, he kind of gets like kicked out of China, I think.
Yeah,
And he makes roots here.
yeah, they say in the very beginning.
Here it is.
Yeah, so right now we're looking at the lore exposition at the beginning about the message, and it says that. Do you have that passage there?
On his deathbed in New Shanghai, which is the city in the PRA, the exiled Chinese leader Chairman Mao Zedong penned an addendum to his little red book, his portion, the missing portion of the message.
Yeah.
So we know he was exiled. Does that mean he was exiled like from his country or not? I think later they talk about and say like Mao the Third. No, this is the first. Mao the First is the one who came here. Mao the Second kind of like helped a little bit, and then Mao the Third is the one who like fixed shit up for the whole nation themselves.
Yeah, and that in particular, like Mao the Third really helped raise, or maybe it was Mao the Second, raise the two armies that.
I think the third.
Oh, was it the third? Yeah, it's sort of like
Yes.
during Mao the Third's reign in the PRA that you get this like highly militarized, highly like sacrificial army.
Where they would take kids from like their families and just have them be like soldiers to go and to die for them. And it was like really cool.
Yeah,
Like in a terrible way.
It was like a. I mean, it was even because even that's politicized, right? Because there's like this sort of like dictator commentary happening a little bit, like this sort of selflessness for a nation.
He gives this big speech about how like you're here to die, like,
Mhm.
and you're gonna die for me, and that's fine. And then and we'll get to it later. His like complete contrast of like, it's such a good line of, these men believe they're giants, but then they encounter a real one and they don't even know what to do. And it's like such a. I'll get to it right now. I wanted to get to this line. I really love. The new Madam President of the Union is introducing herself to the other chosen. The other chosen are giving up like, I'm this person, I'm this person. Ezra Orion, the person who lives at the army stance. Bell Solomon, with his magnificent beard, he says, I am Bell Solomon, skeptic and also governor of the Republic of Texas. And she replies, I'm sorry, did you say skeptic? Like, what the fuck are you doing here? And it's just such a good line of like, well, what you need, Madam President, is perspective. 1 week ago, you were no one, unimportant and insignificant. I, however, have always been and still remain Bell Solomon. When it's just like, that's so like wild to just be like, shut the fuck up. Like, you don't know anything. You're new here. Don't call me out. Like, I've been here and I'm Bell Solomon. That's just such a good fucking line.
It is pretty badass.
And then this part was kind of weird. This part was weird when like he cuts himself and like their eyes glow. I don't know why their eyes glow, but that line of, I have always been this person, and that matters to a lot of people. That's just so good.
Yeah. The eye glowing is them, from my understanding, it's them perceiving the message and what happens, because right after that, Madam President like starts crying, and she's like, it's like at the top of the page there.
Oh,
but then she's like, "Oh, I had no idea it was like this or something."
Yeah, it's super cool. Super cool of it being like, everyone else is like, yeah, dude, that's why like it's powerful, but we have the message and we feel like you see who here really care. Like they make it very clear. Like I think John Freeman doesn't say anything. He kind of just keeps his mouth shut and lets stuff happen. Chivoyo and
it's
her name, the daughter of the PRA.
Who?
They say it right
it's
here.
Who?
Yeah,
I think so.
And who are both like, the message is great and blah 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 blah, like going for it, while Bell and Archibald are kind of like, Yeah, all right. Well, we'll see you fucking later. Like, we're not gonna worry about this anymore.
Oh, and it's ironic that they're the two that are dead now. Actually, by the end of the second
Yes.
trade. Yeah.
I really love Colonel Sanders' character. He's just so fucking weird and like one of those like everyone said it too, like you can talk your way out of anything, and he's like, "Yep, I can do that shit." And he's like having like three ways and shit with people, and like people are watching him and stuff, and he's so interesting and cool. Death says something. Death says something really interesting. He's like, "There's a thing I've seen you people do for show. A man will put his head in the mouth of the lion and think it's bravery and not acting a damn fool." And then him just going, "Now that is exceptionally ambiguous." Like, what the like? It is kind of like, what are you saying, bro? Like, and then him changing his mouth, and he's like, "Are you saying it's brave? Are you saying there's no need to act brave because the lion will never hurt me because the lion isn't that powerful?" Implying that he's like, you were acting like the lion here, but maybe you're not that powerful at all. Like, it's very cool, and like to talk to death like this is very like interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is sort of like a powerful when you get two characters who have such like strong personalities, it gets really interesting every time, I think. And I think most characters do have really strong like personalities in this comic, but I would say that like some characters seem a little bit passive, like Famine. Like Famine's a little bit more reserved.
Yeah.
So it's like
War is kind of like the leader of the three. Conquest has at least the child to show, but Famine is definitely like at least in these two, they're going with the flow, and like they get a few cool lines in there for sure, but like it's not.
Yeah. So it's really nice when you get like this scene here with Death and Archibald, and there's like this back and forth. Yeah. Again, it just like shows how strong the dialogue is in this comic.
And then him leaving, like exactly what you would like. There's no way he's gonna be able to talk himself out of this. Like Death, why would he have anything? Like, why would he let him live? And then he does. And then it works perfectly well for him later when they're like, "How come you're like you talk with him?" And he's just like, "If I talked to him, I'd be fucking dead." I'm like, "I don't know." And he goes, "Really? You think Death wouldn't just shoot me in the face?" And he's just like, "Yeah, that's exactly what happened." Like, it's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Were you gonna say something, Andre?
It definitely. I'm not sure if it's just a Western thing or what, but there's definitely a whole lot of like bargaining, and then I'm gonna come back to kill you in this. So that was kind of like the first instance of that.
Yeah. That happens with the Ranger as well in Trade 2. Yeah.
Yeah. He promises to kill Bell last. The whole scene with where they fight Death's wife is just really cool. It shows you like the flashbacks are always interesting because it really shows you like this person isn't just I feel like sometimes they'll have a character and they'll be like they're super cool and powerful, and they're just like, all right, like they don't really need to explain it. But they show her have multiple flashbacks of like she fights the three horsemen for like a while, and that's like super impressive. It's like a 1v3 against the Horsemen of the fucking apocalypse. When she becomes a war master at like 16, is doing all this cool shit. Like all of it's very just fun, like power displaying of everyone.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't pick up on the Kill Bill vibes when I was reading it, but when you brought it up, that's like what I immediately thought of is that scene. So
yeah, I think something that's interesting is I haven't, at least in these two volumes, I thought there was going to be way more maybe not violence, but way more fighting / action scenes than you actually get. You get like one really big one with the House of Mao.
And it's not even that long.
They're really short. I was actually surprised. It feels like it's way more character and story driven than action driven.
Yeah. Like they go through the whole city, and like a lot of it just kind of happens off screen, off panel at least. Like, just,
yeah.
Oh, speaking of off screen, East of West was, on April 19th, 2018. It was announced that Amazon Studios and Hickman would be developing an hour-long series based on the property. And then it says at San Diego Comic Con 2019, Hickman revealed East of West is no longer development at Amazon Prime Video.
Oof.
Just like, oh, that's That's okay. I kind of some things I don't think need TV shows, if that makes sense.
It would have been really
Yeah.
interesting to see what they do with it, but
Yeah.
I do think that it would have been like terribly difficult to get the feel right. Like I feel like the pacing in here is really unique, and I feel like if you tried to do that while still having this like slow Western vibe, it would feel like really weird. I don't know. So maybe that's why it didn't work.
I always think of The Walking Dead as kind of like one of the peaks for comic book shows.
Mm.
Because they didn't make it exactly the comic. They got the bare bone ideas, and it being just like a zombie survival story allows itself to do that much easier. Of like, here's other characters, and here's like a different way this could go, and here's like these scenes that are iconic in the like they have like that. I haven't watched Preacher, but I've heard Preacher's really good, and it kind of does the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how this would translate to the screen, and I don't think this is one of those stories that goes and like allows itself to be changed that much without becoming something different. And this is so unique. Like I was just saying, the zombie story kind of generic enough to be okay and separate, but this is such a unique idea that to do anything too different would completely change the story.
Yeah, I agree.
I've been told it's a hot take, but it's kind of like the Watchmen movie, how it isn't great in my eyes, at least. Like, I've heard a lot of people defend it and say like it's an amazing movie or whatever, but I think specifically the way that Zack Snyder directed it is just like, sure, a lot of it is very one-to-one, but there's also just kind of stuff where I feel like it misses the point.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen the TV show, but I think the fact that that's just kind of based in the universe, but not actually supposed to be covering anything that's been written, probably helps.
Yeah, it's here's this idea in this world. Let's go do something with it and see how it goes. I know there's another series. I don't know if we'll read it. We might. It'd be nice to go back to it. Called Why the Last Man. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that.
I've read the entire
comic
thing.
series?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's getting a TV show.
What?
Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of want to go back and read it again just because that was one of the first like unique series I've read that wasn't just Marvel. It's really good. It's really good.
Yeah,
But I don't know how
I remember it being great.
TV was gonna do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I have a feeling it would be weird to see. But I mean, again, I think you bring up a good point. Like the relationship you're bringing up is that it might not lend itself to huge flexibility. Like the premise is simple, you know, it's like the last man on Earth, but like the implementation of it, the way the story unfolds is so like specific and really engaging. And I feel like that's what's happening here with East of West, you know. It really feels like a specific story.
I think maybe it'd be better for Why Last Man because it is kind of like the story of Yorick and I don't remember any of the characters' names, but like just kind of like a single unit traveling, while this is like so many different things happening at once. You know, that maybe Why Last Man could be like, okay, we are gonna skip this part, but like we can, you know, this and that will happen, and it's one character, and as long as the major beats are happening, we can accommodate for some things. But like, I'm not saying it's gonna be good or bad or whatever based on it. Just that's an idea.
Yeah.
It can work more for a single character and his arc rather than Death is a character, and so is Archibald, and like these characters, the Three Horsemen become bigger. It's kind of like Game of Thrones, where like there's all these competing agendas, and it's just like really interesting.
Yeah. Well, as long as Why the Last Man doesn't end up like The Promised Neverland, we'll be okay.
We'll be okay. Let me keep going. In the comic right now, we're at the part where she's going through the flashback fighting. I love these like white page quotes that happen like after this big fight against. She fights the Three Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and then you go to the next page. It's a blank page with the logo of the message. And it says, she lasted longer than you will, and it's just kind of like, oh, I guess I'm dying in this story too. Like, super fun.
Those parts definitely kind of tripped me up because I wasn't really sure where a new chapter was beginning for a little bit.
Yeah. Yep.
That was me. That's me too.
And you had like the pages too. It's weird. They do a very interesting way of like selling stuff.
Yeah. The actual book is really nice, I think. Like the trades themselves. We have exactly the same pages, but it does not help at all. Because you get a lot of like interjections of the message and its text. Like those symbols with the text, like, have you become what the message demands? And so it's always relating back to the edges of the story, wherever the story is just starting or ending. And it feels really weird, but it's also sort of like an immersive thing. Like I slowly was like, oh, it's like speaking to me a little bit. It's like trying to, and it is the message. And I think it has a little bit of that going on. It's obviously not like the text of the message, but it does have a little bit of that like communication to it, for me at least.
I agree with that.
It's definitely meant for like a self-reflection and break, I think. Most of them at least. Where it's just kind of serving the purpose to really try to have you either put yourself in the story or think about how this story relates to your actual life. Like,
It's like so hard to do. Like, how do I feel in the apocalypse? Like, oh, I actually just go to work today. Like, I don't need to do much today. I wanted to talk about this scene where like the premiere has like this character who's gonna go like talk to death, and like he has like a white flag. He's meant to deliver a message. He's a messenger simply, and I really just like their use of like paneling and just how foreboding death looks on page 91. He's here with his flag, and like you can see Wolf and Crow, and then like through the darkness you see death on his horse, and it's like this super powerful image of like you don't see him, you just see like the red glow of the engine. He's talking to him. Now he's like, there's not gonna be any help. You best run him back to Mao, telling him the bad news, telling him there will be no quarter. And then he asks him like, do you have it? And the simple like he says yes, and like the circle is small, and like the word is small. Like he is small in comparison to death. And it's just super like great use of imagery in this. And then it ends up with the next page where he is towering above him, and it's just super cool and like imposing. The horse thing is like staring directly at him. And then it's the Great Wall is coming down, and my judgment will follow shortly. Like it's very cool. Like again, just him being the absolute baddest of asses.
Yeah, that's some really nice paneling there. I just noticed. I mean, I noticed the word bubble in the small text, but I didn't really get this sort of like dichotomy that was being drawn until you mentioned it. So that's really nice. Seeing you, Alexi has a magnifying glass tool on a comic, and we are getting close-ups
on page 96. There's a clear front face of Death's wife. And I feel bad saying Death Wife. She has a name. She's a person.
I think it is Xiaolian.
Xiaolian? We're just gonna Xiaolian. Okay.
We're committing.
We're gonna go with that. We're committing Xiaolian because I think it's super disrespectful. I keep saying Death's wife. She's like her own character and like super important.
Because the way most Romanized Asian name or stuff goes is just sounded out by twos.
I agree with that. Let me see. It's page 107. So now he's giving off this like giant speech about how like he has the dragons, which are the males, and the Widowmakers, which are the women. And they're supposed to be these super soldiers that have like taken over this land, and they're getting killed by like 3 manga protagonists in the shonen, and they're just super powerful and strong. Death guns, like I know he has bullets. I don't know what the fuck his bullets are. He can just like kill and shoot anything, and it's wild to me.
Yeah, that's something
Let me
that's
see.
something I noticed is that they don't really, at least not right now, they're not really trying to explain any of the horsemen's like abilities or particular strengths or weaknesses, nor their weapons.
Mm-hmm.
And they each have unique weapons to them. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there is a little bit of lore behind the Four Horsemen. Like War specifically has a blade in like the scripture.
War has a blade.
Yeah. And like I don't know anything about the other ones, but like I think it's like Famine has a scale which is not really useful at all for for killing people, I guess. But
And it I think it's is it always? I think this is like the painting.
yeah, it's like one of
Um,
the paintings. Oh, it says this is about the
Death.
yeah. Death has
Death has his size. Famine
hmm.
has the scales, and then he has this thing, and
W-
War has a sword, and Conquest has a bow.
Well, they took some liberties there.
This Christian Bible concept. There is the part where like sometimes it's pestilence, not famine.
Yeah.
Yeah, like plague or something like that.
Mm-hmm. I've heard it.
Behold the pale horse too, the gray donkey. Let me see. What page you want to say? Oh, this is the part I really want to get to. Um, Mao is going the entire time. There's battles happening where like there's doing all these cool, crazy moves. They're talking about like the PRA and its history and how Mao is like a leader and kind of a general concept of like there is the great man, the first one who came over here, and then like he had a son and he did things, and then like the third generation creates this like powerful empire and does things, and like his son Mao the Fourth maybe like he just needs to keep running that empire. Now Mao the Fifth has another empire. He's just keeping running it. So like maybe yes, he's in charge and powerful, but like he wasn't the one who built it, and that's kind of an important thing. And I think a lot of even like parallel to our lives, like my dad came here as an immigrant and he knows how to like take care of himself, and I'm like, oh, I hope my dad pays for food this week because I can't support myself. Like it's very like different generationally how it
Yeah.
works. So here he's like talking about it, like Mao the Third had fulfilled the promise of what he believed our people could be. 20 million loyal soldiers died to realize his vision, and he's like talking about how like people died for him to achieve a goal, and now it's like what now Jalian is asking like, what do you see now, father? What do you envision? And he just kind of like whispers to himself like ruin, like nothing's happening. A fucking ship crashes, killing a bunch of their people. And then he just goes from like each panel composed anger to like losing his fucking shit of freaking the fuck out, like screaming. There's a thing, father, where men who have thought they were giants their entire lives actually see one for the first time. It sparks a reaction, it shows them their true worth, and it shows them their place. And to me, I always, even the first time I read it, and rereading it, I was always like, he kind of goes crazy really fast. Like it does feel like weird that he goes from like, I am this guy, I was choking out and lifting my daughter with my bare hands, like I am the powerful, I can stand up against death, to him losing his composure and like pure fear in this new version of the panel.
Yeah,
But this explanation is so good of like his mind thought he was so tall and powerful, and he's not.
yeah, it felt really weird to me when I read it too, because I felt that it was really quick, but now juxtaposed with this like, this description that sort of highlights what he's going through, it makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Well, I think I kind of just took it as more of a like esoteric description. Like, obviously, even the most powerful people have to deal with death or their own death.
Oh, that's real
so,
good.
Like, obviously, the more you have, like, the more self-importance you have, the more you're probably going to be afraid of dying. So that's kind of how I took it, where death obviously isn't gonna lose at this point, so
Mm-mm.
he's just kind of realizing that he's done.
I hadn't even thought about that. That's a really cool point to look at it on. I was taking it too matter of factly. They're trying. The daughter who was trying to run away, and it's just kind of like really funny. Like this person is just she definitely gives off this aura of like I am the best person in this room, and she's kind of like it's kind of obvious she's not in every single situation. With the chosen, no one gave a shit about her. With the sister can just make fun of her, and like we have seen more of how powerful Xiaolian is, and how much the dad likes her. Like she's like, I haven't spoken to you in 10 years, and the dad's like, yeah, I visit her all the time. Like I don't want to go fucking crazy. Like she's in my house. Like what do you want me to do? Like this is just how it is.
I know.
And then they have like a 1-page fight, and then she's done. Like oh yeah, I forgot about this part. Her head is like crushed, like insane. Like it's like moments like these of just like, yeah, we did just watch a giant slaughter, but right now the sheer terror of this woman's eyes as her sister's gonna just like eviscerate her whole skull blows me away.
Yeah, those scenes are really interesting. It always feels like slightly, it feels very impactful, but also slightly like a throwaway in terms of like a kill. I don't know, like in terms of action. I think that was like part of it is like, as I was watching there's so much change happening so quickly. You know, so many people are dying so quickly.
Yeah.
So it always feels
like so many nameless people, and now this is a named character, and she's kind of just like, meh.
Yeah, peace out.
I agree with that, but I think that's kind of like the point. Like, not everyone is as important as they believe to be, right?
That's true.
Yeah,
it does make a good point there. Yeah,
I think I've just read enough manga where just like having people you think are going to be important die like almost immediately is just like, yeah, it's I'm used to it now.
Yeah, I really think this is another cool scene of Mao like talking to his daughter as she's about to like cut off his head. Just him admitting it, like, yeah, I fucked up, it's over. I don't get a chance, and her being like, I'll kill you. Like, at least I can give you that honor. And he's like, yep. He goes, well, all that remains of my house is yours. Remember what I taught you and build something better with it. And her line of like, farewell, father. I will miss you. The world will not. And just like, done. Like, that's it. No, she's not sad about it. She understands what has to happen. Like, it's very like, it tells a lot about her character and how like, and as I'm remembering, like, memories are flooding in, she's so fucking rad and, like, just does tons of cool shit. And she's, like, one of the better characters that comes out. Not in, like, a bad way, in the way of, like, she succeeds and loses in a great way each time. And she just loves death, and it's really cool. Here's this part where the children of the apocalypse walk in on Archibald like at the end of his threesome. Just very foursome, sorry. Just very odd to me.
Dang, you counted. I didn't count.
I know I did.
I was saying that like there's it kind of reminds me of the actual basis of the original Infinity War in Marvel, like Thanos trying to woo death.
He was like trying to court death, if they always say.
This whole like, I mean, it's opposite, but it was giving me some of those vibes. This whole part of the story.
I always like those parts. Those were really. I don't think he uses Thanos too much in those. In Hickman's other runs in the Avengers world and stuff like that. But I haven't got too far into it. There is Secret Wars, where Doctor Doom just fucking eviscerates Thanos in like it was like really cool scene of like Thanos, Doctor Doom becomes God, and Thanos is like, I'll kill God real quick, and Doctor Doom's like, all right, and like a page done. It's kind of like it feels like one of those again throwaway kills. It doesn't feel that earned, but it's whatever.
Yeah, I remember a lot of that era of Marvel where they're like doing some pretty wild stuff, like killing the Watcher and stuff like that.
Yeah. Tons of weird shit. Early Marvel was really weird. I think we talked about this before. There's like that part in like Ultimates where like there's a lot of like cannibalism that happens. It's just kind of like, why is this happening a lot? This is just so weird. I really like this scene. This another scene, just again like how cool Archibald is. The three horsemen are now talking to him, and he goes, "You dare?" And he goes, "Oh, I indeed do." And what are their fear from here? You, I have known war all my life. Conquest, I'm a conquistador. Famine, well, lean times are for the peasants. And I have done, what's it say? I do, and do I not look like a man whose wants have long surpassed his needs? Just so fucking good. And then he finishes it off with, the one thing I fear is death, which is like a total, like, summation of the story. Like, these people, yeah, like, these horsemen matter to everyone else, but these chosen have done all they have, or at least the good ones, and now they don't need to worry about them. And it's just super cool. Such great lines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely picked up on a lot of more just like political undertones of everything, because if you look at all the horsemen as like the physical representation of what their names are and what they represent, it is very much true that the chosen don't actually have to deal with any of them but death. Like, and it's like all the stuff as they exist are happening, and of course all the politicians are working with them to get their way and become powerful people in their societies.
You are quite political pilled, my friend.
Jeez.
I
mean, I definitely felt this comic was very like anti-authority.
Yeah, it is. It
Yes.
also is a little critical too. I feel like when Madam President goes down there to her city when it's burning and is like trying to quell it, it almost the activists almost come off as like caricatures, like pure caricatures, because they're like they say like outrageous shit, and then like they each get blown away. It's sort of like, I'm not sure if that's meant to be like a feeling of helplessness, like it's really getting to that point where like nothing matters, or if it's just another element of like the politicized story. But I do agree, Andres. I say political pill jokingly. I actually really like the politics of this.
I also just like pills.
Gobble gobble.
Gobble gobble, as they say. Another beautiful, their full page layouts, gorgeous, so phenomenal. Like with the crows, and like making you follow down and seeing like everything kneeling minus the horse. And she is Jalian, and you should fear her as much as you fear him, for this is the woman who conquered death. Like such like beautiful, like putting her on this pedestal that she again earns and is like super badass. She's so good. How did you guys feel about the introduction of Death's son? Like, how did you guys were like, oh, this is weird. Like as they show the facility and like what he's going through, and like the kind of twist that happens in volume 2 of like, oh, he's aware of what's going on, or like at least the computer is able to talk to him, and it's not just like a machine. Like, you guys get what I'm saying?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't really understand a lot of specifics about Death's character, because at one point when he's talking to his wife, he says like, yeah, can't touch me or whatever. So I wasn't sure if like just interacting physically with Death like kills people or not, or something like that.
Oh, no. This part you mean?
Yeah.
If you stay here, it'll be here nowhere else. You can't hold me, can't be held. Yeah. I think it's just him saying like,
I'm not gonna stay in one place.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. Like he's like, I have my mission and I'm gonna do it.
Yeah,
that's how I interpreted it.
Yeah, I'm sure that's how it's supposed to be, but
because then leave, and he goes, I don't want to leave. Like I haven't left with what I needed to. Like it's basically him being like, I'm gonna do whatever I fucking need to, and right now I need to be with you. Like,
yeah. So I mean, I guess that was just more speaking to the fact that I was kind of just surprised that he was able to have a son in general.
Yeah,
Like,
it's weird.
so that, and I'm certain it's meant to be like kind of strange, but
It's. I feel like I don't know if they talk about it more, but it must be one of those things of just like, is this supposed to? They do talk about it in the message later, where it's kind of like the chalice quote. A cup of a cup, a chalice of a chalice. It's supposed to be like he is somehow supposed to be here and supposed to be born. He's supposed to be the beast of the apocalypse. And it's like they knew, and they're surprised he betrayed him in the end. But like, it is kind of like, oh, he has a son, and that is kind of like the crux of the story is that he is trying to save his son, who is supposed to be the beast.
it does seem like they're trying to raise multiple beasts.
Yeah, I actually don't know the lore of like the beast in like the apocalypse biblical story. Does anyone know what the role is?
I don't know anything
No.
about the apocalypse biblical.
Damn.
Mm-mm.
It's I don't either. So I can do some quick googling. This is biblical spoilers, but if you haven't read it yet, too bad.
I think this. I really do like this weird disposition. The part where he's like talking to the robot, and they have names. They get names later on, so I'm trying not to spoil those. But like him asking like, "How do you feel?" and he's like, "I don't know what that means." Like very like spooky and ominous, and like for the first trade, you just assume he is kind of like, "Oh, he's fucked." Like this is crazy. So good. God help him. It's a great art again in this last page of the comic where he's like riding into the sunset, surrounded by the crows and the wolves. Super good. And I think that's volume 1. So now back to volume 2. We just finished volume 1. We had an ad break there. Hopefully we'll be sponsored by this episode. If not, make up some ads.
Yeah,
I'll
right.
just insert those into whenever I want to do.
Do you want to
Now leave. Okay. Dollar Ball Shave Club, which is actually a real thing now. That I think about it because of fucking Manscaped or whatever.
Yeah, you're kind of combining Manscaped and like one of the 20 monthly shaving things.
I'm asking a question here. I think, how did you guys feel with the 2 trades? Do you think if we just recommended 1, it would have been kind of like, okay, that was fine. I think 2 lets itself open a bit more, especially with how big the cast of characters we have.
I think 2 worked. Yeah, I think 2 worked, but I think we definitely needed 2 weeks, I think. I binged them all today, and I have a lot of knowledge about them now, but I also know that, like, I don't know. Do you think 2 is doable in a week for both us and our lovely listening audience?
I think if the audience is like die hard and they listen every week and they follow everything they could do, it is kind of like a big ask to do 2 trades. But this is like about the same page length as Dungeon Meshi Volume 1 was. When Dungeon Meshi was like under 300 pages, this is about under 300 pages.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I had finished by the weekend, but I also definitely like finished reading on Tuesday or something like that. Like I could have pushed it if I knew we were recording a week later. So
I think, yeah, it's one of those things where I think as us people, if we like, there is a deadline, we'll make time and do it, even if it, I read like the first volume after on like my 10-minute breaks at work. I'd read like an issue or something.
Yeah.
So, and this is also a very verbose story, and like Dungeon Meshi is mostly like art at times. This is very like, oh, read this soliloquy I have.
I think I definitely kind of connected more with the second trade though, just because the first one felt a lot like lore dump, whereas this one kind of got more into the meat and potatoes of like the messaging.
Yeah, the they're no longer this. They're now talking about the consequences of the message and how they feel about it, and like it's no longer setting up what's gonna happen, but like talking about the effects now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think is a really good segue for this. My first page note for volume 2 is the beautifulness of like there's Belle and Archibald like going back and forth and being like, oh shit, like they reveal that they think this is a traitor, and so they're like, we're gonna have you attach yourself to this beast, and it'll purge your mind, and it'll find out if you're part of us. And Belle and Archibald are like, okay, like Belle's like, oh fuck, I'm freaking out, and Archibald's like, I'll take care of you, don't worry, like let's ask some questions and this and the other. And then he's like, then they explain it. This is a gift from the Horsemen, something from the other side. The beast will attach itself to each of us, tasting flesh, and in the consumption, it will divine where each of our true loyalties lies. And then Archibald's just like, fuck that. Belle's the traitor. He tried to make me help him. I ain't doing that shit. Like, totally, like, I'm saving my own skin. I'm not gonna fucking deal with that. I don't care. Like, he is there for himself in the long run. I think it's very, just like, again, shows his character, and like, now, instead of them just being dead, one of the chosen is out. Belle is out. He is no longer part of them, and those consequences that come with it.
I think one of the powerful parts of that decision came from the fact that Archibald already had some interaction with death, and he was already lying to the Horsemen. So he was like definitely trying to save his ass there, because they could have gone through it, and I think they would have both been found out then. So that's sort of how I read it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's definitely objectively like more of a traitor than Belle is at this point.
Yeah.
Like Belle is just guilty of not really believing in what's going on and just wanting to know for the sake of wanting to know. Archibald is kind of like actually trying to work against it.
It's just real funny. And then his like nonchalant of what's going on, like, hot damn, look at that boy run. Like, he doesn't care. Like, he's just like enjoying what's going on. And I thought this was really weird. Chavoyo's like in like weird powers, and like they have more happens, and like the other two can turn into wolves. At one point, Famine does like that weird thing with the lights to show off where Death is. But here Chavoyo on page 12 is like creating this like tunnel of like sand, it looks like, that shoots out and then becomes like a giant monster. It looks like a Demogorgon from Stranger Things. Like super weird. It doesn't even have hands, but it like super cool too at the same time. The texting in this one's really good. The whoosh is, I don't know if it's carried over from here. Oh, like it's engraved into the sand. Very, very cool like use of lettering here. I love when they do that shit.
I think I agree a lot with Andres that like this second volume, this trade, right, is it really starts to highlight a lot of the political elements. I mean, you even have like this political commentary with Belle and the judge, and the Rangers, and how the Rangers are just like, yep, politicians and everyone else, they're gone, they're out of here. And by gone and out of here, I mean like we're killing them all. So, I think it definitely is like a more politically heavy trade between the two of them, and that's not a bad thing because it actually really works in service of the story, I feel.
Yeah, I was definitely getting some pretty heavy like Scourge and Punisher vibes from the Texas Rangers, which I hadn't connected that they were the Texan like country or part of the country. So that makes a lot of sense thinking about it now. Just that the more traditional cowboys are from the Texas part.
Yeah. I think that what the series is doing, this was sort of the dominant part of the notes I took for this episode, which is this comic series is really effectively like blending like futurism / like sci-fi like the past / the West, and it marries the two through like mysticism and like the like occult and the sort of like spiritual, because I mean, it's not really, it's more like supernatural than spiritual because Four Horsemen, but um but I think that like this scene in particular, the one where they are going to see the oracle but they have to pass through the mirror, which is like this lake. um this is one of those scenes where like you really get like heavy sort of mystical / magical vibes. And I really love that because that is like the thing that is sort of driving the Four Horsemen element, at least to me right now. It's like it's more about the supernatural, sort of like inevitable, almost spiritual occurrence, right? It's like the apocalypse. So it's nice to see that in a couple places in this trade you get this like heavy magical / mystical vibe. So yeah.
There's points where like they're in like later on when you see Endless Nation, they're very technology heavy, but also Chavoyo just created like a demon to come out of his hand, and like super crazy.
I never really like blinked an eye at that. I think just because the way it starts, like just the horsemen like really just spawning from the earth. So I think just that happening right off the jump like kind of tempered my expectations that there's definitely going to be some supernatural occurrences going on. So
I guess you just never guess how big they're gonna, like, this is like a living ocean. And like, it's crazy, it's cool, it's fun.
Like it all seems grounded within this universe, but like they establish pretty early on that this universe isn't super grounded in what we perceive as reality.
Yeah, I think this panel you stopped on here, Alexi, is like a really cool representation of what we're both talking about, which is like there you can almost imagine. So we're on the panel where the Four Horsemen each have their steeds, so to speak, and it's like in the pilgrim
page 47.
Yeah, it's the pilgrimage scene where they go and kill all the pilgrims, but it sort of highlights like this like balance between like technology and like the supernatural thing that gets set at the outset. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a really cool panel to like contextualize the conversation. Yeah.
I never really understood the pilgrim part. I don't get why they don't want them.
I think it's is it because of they have like they don't want other people worshiping something else?
I guess is it maybe like they don't want the message to be like said incorrectly or like the wrong people to listen to it. Maybe because like they talk about like they have like the leaders and they kill the leader and they're just like, you're not like, we don't care about this guy. Is that
we also don't know what the purpose of the armistice location is yet. Like we actually don't know anything about the comet or why this particular location.
That's true.
So maybe it has to do with that, but I don't know. Like you would know because you've read further than I have. So I'm not.
It's been so long. It's kind of like a fresh read for some things.
Yeah. Well, maybe it has to do with like this particular side is specifically tied to the message and the apocalypse, and you also, I mean, from this you also get Conquest, like beautiful story with Ezra, and how he builds the structure at the armistice. So it might have something to do like that. It seems like that side is really heavily focused on.
Yeah, I think it also, looking at it now, probably has to do with the horsemen wanting to like shape their leaders rather than assigning them. Like obviously they did it with the president and finding somebody who knows the message and is loyal to it. So I guess these people are kind of loyal to the message, but not in the way they want.
Interesting. We jumped a bit ahead of here. I think a lot of like exposition. There's coolness. There's other parts I want to talk about. The part with here is with Ezra and like his growing up, and he becomes like a really interesting character later on. Like they definitely like show how you. It's a really good opening to what his like journey is going to be in the story, where he is just like, this is his mom, and his mom is now Conquest, and he just is like really like asking like, am I making you happy? And the mom is just like, are you what the message demands? That's it. There's nothing else. That's all I care about. I'm gonna give you food, I'm gonna give you shelter, but that's when it's gonna make me happy. And he does everything he can to make it. And even then as a child, like he grows up as an adult and he asks the same question, do I please you now? And that depends, and it's the same thing. And he answers honestly, no, I'm not. He like knows he can do more. He knows he can give more. And now finally with like his fusion to the beast, he's like, have you become what the message demands? And he says yes, but I don't want it, and it's too much. And the Conquest is just like, no, like this is what you're supposed to be. And this is who you're supposed to be. Like, this is it. This is who you are now. It's like really just wild. Like this whole paneling is just wild of like this woman like standing outside and seeing him on page 56. Ezra like with a face of anger looking at his like mother, technically. These other two like just like kind of like watching from their point of view, and this like insane beast framing them.
Yeah.
I think a cool thing about it's mainly in trade 2, but I feel like a lot of the characters are acting in their own self-interest, but it doesn't really come off as like Lord of the Flies, humans are inherently bad type deal. And I think this story like the story of Ezra being raised to be this is kind of a good reflection of that. Like he was just a baby and raised by Conquest to become this like representative of the message and death and like the end of humanity or whatever it's the message actually is supposed to be. And I feel like it doesn't lend itself to like that interpretation of everybody's selfish. It's just kind of a little more than that.
I think
it's more the environment that shapes us.
Yeah, that type of situation is also really, this Ezra's story in particular really helps with the framing of the story and the mood as something that's like inevitable. Like so many things are out of these people's power. And Ezra having just been raised to be a servant essentially is helps with that narrative, I think. Yeah. Because everything to me feels really like impending doomish. Not, and I wouldn't say like impending doom like dread, but I would say like inevitable, maybe like the inevitability of a situation. Because like multiple times the message is like referenced, and like everything about the message is coming true, and the message is so important in these first two trades that it really does feel like, yeah, whatever the message says, it's gonna happen. And that's what happened with Ezra in his hand. So,
and they mentioned too, like the message is like undeniable, but like sometimes we fuck it up. Like we're seeing the wrong thing. The message is saying X, Y, and Z, but we just haven't got through the whole letter, the alphabet yet, so we're not going to understand it. And they're just kind of like, well, the fuck, like they don't really know how to, get through it.
Yeah. And that's also part of the reason why I was getting Evangelion vibes, is because there's like a almost direct parallel with the Dead Sea Scrolls in that series.
Evangelion.
We're now to, I think, this is just the middle of the chapter. Or I don't know which chapter this is. Like we were saying earlier, we don't know. Chapter 8, issue 8. This is one of my favorite character designs. Doma Lux. I don't know. She just looks so cool.
She's got
think her
my
hair's
gosh.
stupid in like a cool way.
Adam's Family vibes.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
that.
She's cool. She has like she has a few cool scenes later. She does some interesting things where like she's reliable. That's kind of like they talk about it. But this is the part where like we focus on a few things where we talk like we learn this is a prison that they imprisoned an oracle. Like there's this one. The oracle always was a bit odd. Like she's there and they don't. And again, I've read this story, but I've not read it in a long time. We get like such little hints at what's happening. He built this prison. He put her here. We don't know why. He's here to asking for help. They took her eyes. The eyes are still existing somewhere. At least we know where one is with the tracker. I don't think we know where the second one is. I just remember where the second one is. So like, you know, things like that. And like how she talks is very much like she's playing games with them. Her look is fucking disgusting with like the tentacles coming out of her eyes and her brain being visible.
It's a very a lot of like Lovecraftian Cthulhu vibes with all of the tentacles.
Yeah. Now we're at the part earlier on just mentioning where like we talked about the president and like how she acts with them, and you guys mentioning like caricatures. It's like everyone, you know, grandiose speaking of just like powerful declarations. This like middle one is just saying like, look at what you've done. Like, you know, like no one really talks like that. It's just kind of like perfect for writing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they
I
use.
don't know, man. Maybe I've been on Twitter too much, but this seems like exactly something that somebody
But,
would
like, no one
write, maybe
says
not
it.
say it.
Yeah.
but-
Yeah, no one
Yeah.
says it. So that's them saying it.
I agree that
You want to buy us? We are not one more thing that you can buy and sell for fucking money. What we want is to be rid of people like you, old men and women who think they can tell us how to live our lives. We may be prisoners, but no one owns me. Like,
it felt
Yeah, I get what
very
you're
it
saying.
felt very caricaturish, which I was like, I don't know how to feel about that. I mean, like, if
Yeah.
everything was a hyperbole, and I guess we got the like the sort of anarchist hyperbole there a little bit.
to me, I came across most when they say fascist. I think I've heard fascist so much. Now it doesn't really like it. Kind of lost its meaning a little bit. If that's you know, maybe
Everyone's a fascist.
sad to
You're a
say.
fascist. I'm just kidding.
Woo.
We are a anti-fascist podcast.
Hard to. This is one of my favorite chapters from the first ones. Where we like learning a lot about John Freeman. He's just so cool. Like his outfit's cool. He's fucking cool. His like knowledge that we learn about later on is really cool. Like he just has a lot of just like really interesting connections and is a very unique character because he's so young in comparison to the other chosen. Like who is young, but she kind of like is indoctrinated by this mindset of just like the message, and he is like a believer, but also like not like super much like, oh, I have to help this bitch. Like, no, I don't want to help her. Like, and he doesn't know
I'm
why.
looking
He
forward
just
to the
doesn't want
wolf, and I forgot his name. Freedman is, I think, is the last name, but
Crow.
no, the prince, the crown prince.
Well, like there's 9 John Freemans, I think
John.
they say. Like,
14.
14.
Yeah. That I'm excited for the crown prince, his meeting with Wolf, because they were both raised by Chavoyo. So
I don't know. Did they mention that here?
yeah, they mention it in a
Okay,
well,
cool.
it's heavily implied. Like they're seen together.
holding
I didn't wanna-
holding hands as they are like talking to Chavoyo somewhere. It's like in a flashback somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's when they kill Chavoyo if it's not there.
Okay, cool. It's definitely like one of the more interesting. I don't know if they mentioned it, but it's one of the more interesting relationships, and it's really fun. I will say there's another part. John 9 comes back,
Hey.
and he has like a little like fake leg.
Oh.
It's really funny. It's one of the few times I laughed because I'm sorry for the spoiler, but he does shoot him again in the leg. And John is, because he doesn't feel it, it's just like a robot part. He's like, "Are you like?" He's like, "Come on, like this is bullshit." And it's like very like out of character for like out of
Writing style.
It's kind of like a left turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just feels like okay, like why this is a joke, like an actual joke. written by him. It's such like a weird, grandiose palace again here. Like it's so big and massive. We don't even see the ceiling.
Yeah, it's.
He's like, it's weird. It's cool, but like it's weird for sure.
I think it's cool that we get like the weird city state style leadership where like it's all sort of about money and the relationship to that with this particular nation. Or at least that's how it's framed so far. But it also seems like they have a lot of luxury associated with themselves. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I thought this was really cool how he plays his dad.
Mm-hmm.
Like the dad could totally be like, I'm not gonna fucking help these people. Like I don't want to be them. And he's like, no, like you taught me we should have people owe us stuff. So we should have them owe us. And then he's like, yeah, cool. Go buy yourself a nation. Like I think it's a very cool, again, super powerful, cool line. The fight with Chavoyo does feel a bit crazy. Here's one of my favorite panels in the entire comic too. When Death shoots Crow, and like you can see her eyes in the remnants of the Crow that was transforming.
Yeah,
that's just really cool.
Yeah, you also get her mouth
like
a little bit.
When he shapeshifts into like that giant beast, it feels really weird. Like it kind of just happens out of nowhere.
Yeah, but Wolf is definitely like building him up to be like he's powerful, and like seeing how powerful Wolf and Crow are, like it's just kind of like, oh man, he must actually be like pretty intense.
Yeah, this part was cool when like Crow picks up Death and like aims his gun for him. I thought that was like a really like, it's just cool paneling. It doesn't really make too much sense, but it's awesome. And then he like gets gored like incredibly terribly. Like it's pretty gruesome.
Yeah,
here it is. Here's page 131, John and Wolf. And when they meet, it's very powerful. They definitely are like, they grew up together. They spend a lot of time together. And I think it's just really cool.
I think it is pretty cool how they treat like the different family dynamics of the nations and how kind of based in history they are. Like just how, despite Wolf basically killing his father, he's still like at his side trying to like comfort him, whereas like Mao just Xiao Lane beheads her father and just kind of calls it.
Yeah, for honor in particular, right? It's sort of like an honorable death.
And there's a lot of that like respect happening. Like Death even says here, like the only reason you're not dead immediately is because of your son, right? Like I'm respecting him who respects you, and that's how it is. And like you can, but they both like don't want things to happen, but in the end, it all comes back to like Death doing whatever the fuck he wants, and like killing whoever he needs to kill.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting tie into like one of the first messages you read somewhere, which is like there's more that divides us than brings us together. Or it's like the things that divide us are stronger than the things that unite us. And I think that like
Jesus.
Yeah, I think that like that's the first thing you see after the three horsemen wake up or are reborn. And I think like the whole political elements and like the family elements and the historical accuracy sort of like lends itself to like identifying this like socio-politicalness to it, you know, like everyone's getting placed in their specific spots. But at the end of the day, you keep seeing like a family dynamic, so it sort of feels like there's a little bit of unity in terms of like, I don't know, like a family emotional connection. So far, I don't know. I'm probably reading too deep into it, but I'd be interested to see how they take it from there.
It's a lot about family too. I mean, Death is looking for his son. There's like moments between other people. Sorry, I got sidetracked. Do you guys think Crow is related to Wolf?
I thought that they were. I thought I heard sister.
I thought they were sister.
I thought it was sister
yeah,
brother.
but because she's not there with him, and that could just be like a cultural thing. But there's a part I remember. I think it was in this
on a Wikipedia page. Well,
Crow, which Wolf's lover. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I didn't know they both.
Well,
like, that's not how I imagined them.
There's also
I didn't really think they're related. Because,
Yeah.
yeah, because
I don't know.
like in at least right here, the specific thing where he's comforting Chavoyo, like I think
Crow doesn't seem to.
yeah, she's very indifferent about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also an element there. There are a couple of other spots where Crow, Wolf is talking about how he will follow Crow, and it's in a conversation about love. I think it's when they realize that when they're about to enter the PRA, and Wolf's like, love will make people do crazy things, and
Yeah.
and then he was like, including like follow someone wherever they go or something, and it like cuts to a picture of Crow. So I think that makes sense.
I think when I read that, it was definitely I didn't pick up on that one. That works out for me then.
More on like the family thing though, it does really feel like, well, I don't know, I was picking up something that like the horsemen feel betrayed that like death left them to be on his own. So I feel like that kind of feeds into the part of their like motivation.
There's definitely a lot of it comes in more later, but like war is definitely the one that's most hurt by death leaving.
Yeah,
like war and death are like it's a big part of it.
They are also very emotional too. Like when that in the very beginning when they're killing all those soldiers.
Oh yeah,
and then they just like they're like, but there's only 3 of you, and then they all kick his ass. They literally physically beat him up to death, basically.
Yeah, super fun scene too because he's just like they're trying to have fun, and he's just like, but you fucked up. It's like, oh, like this whole podcast is just me saying how fun this series is. So just go read this series, audience. I want to talk about my favorite page. My favorite page is page 133 of volume 2. This sniper shot I think is so beautiful. I think it's super rad. It's I don't know what it is about it that I love so much. If it's just like how powerful the characters are, if it's like this crazy spiral, it's just so, to me, one of the best things I've ever seen when it comes to like art. I had this as my background for like 4 years, I think. Like when I started reading it up until like I had to get like a new phone and I didn't remember what chapter it was from, and then I came back to it and I found it again like another year later. But yeah, I just had to really talk about that one. His skull up here getting like just shattered, his jaw being separate. Oh, so gross and cool. This shot also is wild, like how far we go back into the thing, and then seeing that he shot it through his dog, like, is really cool. Like his dog being like the actual rifle.
Yeah. Homie sniped somebody with a fucking cannon.
Yeah, so good. But that's, I think I'm so happy I did go into volume 3 where this happened, but that to me is volume 2, and not much. I don't have much else to say like from details about this, but I have like general whole ideas. But you guys, please tell me how you guys feel about these 2 volumes, I guess, and where you think the story will go is a good question I think to ask. Manny.
Okay. I really loved. I think I really love the format of doing the 2 trades. By doing it, I got the lore dump that I actually don't mind lore dumps, so long as they like build up in the first volume or the first trade, which it did. It had enough of like a payoff for me, and the second one really helped like set the tone for what it feels like is a focus, which is like it really does feel like a focus on human nature a little bit because everything is so character driven, so story driven. But and that's not a bad thing because I actually really enjoy those types of stories. So overall, I loved it so far. I'm hoping that the series kicks it up a notch with its like absolute like otherworldliness. And I know it has the potential to uh get a little bit more mystical, get a little bit more involved with like seeing the Oracle there, for example. That's like a nice sort of mystical element to it. So I really like those elements. I'm hoping that they kick up a notch. I have a feeling that the sun is going to play such a huge role, especially since now we know by the end of volume 2 that he is sort of aware that he's in danger, that they're like they're on the three horsemen are onto something that it seems like the sun already knows. Um
Hmm.
and so I'm yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping there's a lot more tragedy in it, but from a perspective of like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but from the perspective of this like really interesting relationship between like politics and mysticism and like just good character writing. So I think I'm sure it has that because the writing's great so far. So I'm looking forward to it. I'll probably pick up the third trade eventually, or I'll download Hoopla and actually use my library card.
Yeah. Definitely a lot of dread and like stuff like that happens, and it's a lot of typical people. It ends always with some hope at the end, and it feels really good. But it's such a wacky ride what we go through. Like just tons of cool ups and downs. Andres?
Yeah, I mean, I really liked what we read so far. I think uh, volume 2 is definitely what kind of sold me on it because
Mm-hmm.
while I don't mind lore dumps, it really isn't what gets me interested in reading
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
Like, had it just left off there, like, I don't know if I would have been super interested in reading it. Like, I probably would have just for the, like, sheer interest of seeing where it goes, but
Mm-hmm.
like I think the way that the second volume is shaped, how like people are actually kind of starting to get their comeuppance, and you can see that there's consequences to everything that's happening. Where I'm not exactly sure exactly where it's going, and with so much going on, it's kind of hard to even predict where it's gonna go. Um, but I think it's very well written in that way where it's just kind of one of those things where I personally am like, well, I'll let the author handle this because I don't I don't really want to think too deeply when I know that
Yeah.
there's more to come. Like,
Yeah. There's so much that we don't. Yeah, that's a really good way of saying it. There's this story is kind of like not like anything else, so trying to figure it out and then not be correct is a bit much sometimes. Again, one of my favorite series I've ever read. I hope I'm probably. I don't know if I'm gonna. If I do reread it again, I might actually just be like, "Hey, let's come back to it." And like, we've all read 3 volumes of at least more, so maybe we'll just do 3 this time and like get a big story, or like, we'll see how it goes. Depending if you guys actually read it or not, that's fine. But it's super fun. I love so many of these characters. I love the grandiose wording of everything, of how everything is like said with like the weight of the world hanging on it because the world is ending because it's apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
So please go read East to West. Go read more Jonathan Hickman. I think I'm gonna read. Maybe I'll meet Manhattan Projects one more time to give it a chance.
Yeah.
But I think that's it for this episode for me. Do we have a recommendation for next week that we can suss out, Manny?
We do. Not sure how happy you're going to be about it, but
I know what it is.
we are taking a dive into Grave of the Fireflies, a Japanese animated war film done by Studio Ghibli, or Ghibli, however you prefer to say that. It is not for the faint of heart, but there's a lot of beauty in it. And I'm really excited to dive into a variety of things about it, including its tragedy, but more importantly, its human nature, and the way it displays that. So it'll be really good. Yeah, it's
I think it's on Hulu. It might be on Hulu and Netflix, honestly.
Yeah,
It's everywhere.
for those who have HBO Max, even though they have a Studio Ghibli collection up there, it is not up there because it's owned by Sentai Filmworks for distribution in the US. Yeah. So if anyone's actually looking to pick up the Blu-ray, it's on Sentai. So
Shout out to Sentai for making their anime properties actually attainable on physical media.
yeah, that's why I'm really happy I can say that and people can actually find it.
They're so super, those Sentai.
Yeah.
They
That's a
don't
joke
charge
about Power Rangers.
They don't charge $200 for one volume of a show. Like looking at you, Aniplex.
Yeah. So Grave of the Fireflies will be good. Watch it when you're not feeling sad, and it will go better than you hope. Everyone.
Been meaning. I high-key haven't seen a Ghibli film, so.
Whoa, you're
Yeah.
like me a while ago. I watched Princess Mononoke, and I think that was the only one we watched. We had plans to watch it in my old apartment, but it just never happened. I do want to watch Howl's Moving Castle. That one like seems the most interesting and fun to me.
Yeah, I've seen every Ghibli film except the last 4. I've seen like 11 of them so far.
Hanyo.
I've seen Ponyo, but like a long time ago. I've been like watching them building up. I was out of all of the ones that that exist here, I would either recommend Grave of the Fireflies, which is our recommendation, or I was thinking about Pom Poko, which is a movie not many people know about. But it's about Tanuki who live in the forest and who are being pushed out from their forest.
Love Tanuki.
Yeah.
Oh, Tanuki.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story about family and tradition and about
say the name again?
Pom Poko. Pompoko.
Shout out to the Eccentric Family, which is also anime about Tanuki having to do with family and tradition.
Shout out to let me find out the one I'm reading about that has a Tanuki in it. Keep vamping while I go take 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's a great story. There's a lot of like magical realism in it, and there's also a lot of tragedy in it, which is again, I have my happy places in sadness for some strange reason. But it's a really good film. Yeah, I think I just need a lot of hugs, honestly. But Pom Poko is great. It's super underrated. Like I never hear anyone mention Pom Poko. Like no one. Everyone mentions, all of the brilliant Miyazaki films, but never Pom Poko. Someone give Pom Poko some love. We're not going to do Pom Poko on this pod probably, but
we'll do Pom Poko next week. We'll do Pom Poko.
No, we're not doing Pom Poko next week.
It's my turn to
we'll do
next
it.
time.
We're gonna replace it.
We're not replacing it. We are not.
Pom Poko.
Even my mom told me to watch Grave of the Fireflies.
Hey.
Your mom told you to watch Grave of the Fireflies?
Well, she was watching it on Christmas for some reason.
God.
Yeah, that's like
so sad.
We literally, both me and my brother were just kind of like, you know what this movie is about, right? And she's like, yeah. And we're like, okay. Like, it's not a happy one.
No, it's intense. Yeah, it'll be fine though, Alexi. I promise, as consolation for doing Grave of the Fireflies, I will do something that's very happy the next round for myself.
Do you mean Pom Poko, the comedy drama by Studio Ghibli?
No, We can do a
I'm
different
like
one.
more interesting to see what Manny says is very happy.
Yeah,
so-
that's kind of like gonna be
I'll keep it as a secret.
weird.
I'll find it and then we'll do it.
Sure. He'll
Prominent-
find it.
On the Wikipedia for Pompoko, prominent scrotums are an integral part of Tanuki folklore, and they are shown and referred to throughout the film, and also used frequently in the shapeshifting. This remained unchanged in the DVD release, though the English dub, but not the subtitles, refers to them as raccoon pouches.
That's exactly what that's how they refer to them in the sub.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
I'm reading this manga called Renjo Desperado, Love Story Desperado, where it's like a western again, like a samurai western, and she finds a tanuki, and they just explain his testicles today, like when I was reading through it, and he like shapeshifts into like her, and then he's like, oh, thank God, like we're fine. And he goes, what was that? Well, I made my testicles look like your face. She's like, that's not cool, man. Don't do that shit. Okay. Before we head out, plugs? Any plugs?
Follow the Twitter and Instagram. I was trying to do something on Facebook and found out that the account I made got like banned. I'm not sure why, but yeah. I even made a MySpace today for no reason, but the website's so broken that I was trying to upload like a picture and it wouldn't let me. So
Oh no.
I swear to God, I read somewhere Justin Timberlake owns part of MySpace.
That's such a bad business decision. MySpace isn't used for anything
Who knows,
anymore.
man?
so
I'm gonna go plug MySpace.
if
Go
I
make a
can
MySpace.
actually get the MySpace to work, I will post stuff on there just for the memes.
Oh my God.
Please post. I'm plugging MySpace. Follow me. Put me in your top 8. That's my plug for the week.
I plug thinking about big tanuki balls for your entire week. And watching Grave of the Fireflies.
Raccoon pouches. Okay. We're done, guys. We'll see you next time on Raccoon Pouches Incorporated.
Johnny.